Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the third of our roundtables in a series of 4. My name is Doug and I'm one of the co-founders of Intelligent People. If you don't know us, we're a specialist product recruiter with close to 20 years experience recruiting product talent up to board level. We provide both permanent and interim services, contingency and executive search, and we cover product ops, product design and product management up to CPO level. Please do go to our website to see current live roles. We've also launched a free product mentorship scheme at the start of the year. We now have over 140 mentors and have received over 750 mentorship requests. You'll see the website on your screen, and it ties in really nicely with today's theme, which is how mentorship helps you build a strong product team. I'm co-hosting today with Jennifer Campbell. Jen is an Associate Director at Intelligent People, and we've broken the talk into 3 distinct sections and have an expert speaker on each one. So I'd like to introduce the following. Chetan, who's the Senior Vice President of Product at DAZN. Chetan will be talking about setting the foundations for successful mentorship. Talia King is the CPO and the MD of Connectr, which is a mentorship platform. And Talia will discuss how to attract and retain talent using mentorship. And finally, Ruth Goff, who is the CPO of Lingoda. And Ruth's topic is fostering leadership and career growth using mentorship. I'd like to pass to Jen now.
Thanks for the introduction, Doug, and welcome everyone. It's great to be part of these discussions today. We are starting off this topic with a few key statistics, which you'll see on the screen very shortly, on how mentorship can have an impact on the overall company and employee performance. The first one I'd like to highlight is improved employee performance. The American Society for Training and Development stated that companies with formal mentorship programs experienced a 20% increase in employee productivity. As well as this, the same source stated that employees who participate in mentorship programs acquire new skills 10 times faster than those who do not. These both stood out to me particularly, as it shows how mentoring can help employees to feel more included in their organisation and generally more engaged. This brings me on nicely to introduce our first guest speaker today, Chetan, who is currently SVP Product Payments at DAZN Group. As well as this, Chetan is a mentor with our Intelligent People Product Mentorship Scheme. Welcome, Chetan.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. I'm humbled to be sharing stage with an esteemed set of individuals.
Amazing. If you're able to start with a brief overview of yourself and your product career to date, and what compelled you to be part of these discussions today?
Sure thing. So I'm Chetan. I've been in product management for over 2 decades. My stint in product management started at Party Gaming, which went on to become the world's largest online gaming operator. Then I moved on to a couple of startups, notably UNICEF lottery product, the first one that we launched in Norway. Exciting journey throughout. Before moving on to Pragmatic Solutions, a truly world-class iGaming platform providers and run by a very talented team of individuals. At present, I'm at DAZN as a SVP Product for Payments and lucky to be actually under the mentorship of Sandeep Tiko. And when I'm not working, during my personal space, I do meditation and yoga daily. I try to do it almost daily. I love music, love reading, and I have a very wide range of media consumption. Talk about DAZN application, Netflix, Disney Plus, Sky, everything. I've consumed all media. So look forward to this conversation.
Amazing. Yeah, certainly very well placed to be part of these conversations today. So the first thing I'd like to cover, particularly as you're heavily involved with our own mentorship scheme, is what do you believe are the key roles and responsibilities of a successful mentor?
I think this is key because we start defining what a mentor is, and you read about mentorship as somebody with more experience and knowledge, trying to nurture and guide another individual. But I feel the key element missing here is that the mentor learns and grows along with the mentee. So a couple of elements that I've always seen that go a very long way. Number one, empathy, right? Be able to understand what the mentee is going through, because every individual has a different scenario. There's listening, I wouldn't call it active listening. To me, it's just listening is such an underrated skill. Um, and then constructive feedback. So for most of us, right, like you can always talk about individuals that have had a impact in their career. Start with the family, your siblings, your teacher, your coach, your bosses in most of the cases. And I've been really fortunate to have had a series of mentors throughout my career, most notably at DAZN currently, in the past, Ashley, Deep, David, before that, Suki Sandhu, Andreas Hartman, Andrew Karonis, Sushena. In fact, I'm doing a disservice by mentioning these names. Because I want to make sure that all the others that I've had the opportunity to work with have had an equal impact on this. So that's
Mm.
really close.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like the sort of empathy side of things as well, and also the fact that you mentioned that you learn just as much from the mentees as sort of that they learn from you, which is really interesting. And that sort of brings me on really to how do you, as a mentor, begin a sort of successful relationship? Do you have sort of any tools or processes that you use? How you begin conversations? Kind of keen to get your thoughts on that.
Cool. So, I mean, again, it all starts with a conversation, right? It always starts with a first interaction, being very genuine about what you're trying to achieve. And I've gone through a lot of material that Intelligent People provides. Something as simple as setting up SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. In fact, if I were to just take a leaf out of all the free material that's available on Intelligent People, that in itself suffices. And I do get this sense that every time I'm connecting with a mentee, the team at Intelligent People is gently nudging us in the direction of, all right, is it structured? Are you having a conversation? Are you getting the best out of this? Uh, so in terms of tools and materials available, I think just referring to everything that we have on the site is quite a lot of material to just assimilate and go through.
And do those sort of and the sort of SMART sort of framework there, does that sort of help you to create a kind of positive environment for sort of the space for learning and coaching?
See, yeah, it's as experience has taught us, trust and all these elements don't just come quickly. It takes a bit of a time. Uh, but like we were having a conversation around uh, something very basic. Some of the very particular quote by Albert Einstein is, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking of the problem and then 5 minutes about the solution. And that to me exemplifies again the concept of listening and building a conversation. Uh, Even in product management, right? A very basic concept in product management is that you start with a problem statement, which in itself tells you that you start by listening first. You ask why 3 times. Like there are multitude of examples, and I apply the same when it comes to having a conversation with not just the mentees, but even when you're trying to figure out a particular feature or build a product.
Got it. And I guess this is, super important, from those initial conversations that you're sort of able to build that sort of trust and rapport with mentees, so they're able to kind of open up to you and sort of get the most out of the sort of session. So how do you go about building that rapport with the mentees?
So, to begin with, some of this is already pre-planned with Intelligent People. Like you have a plethora of product management guides or a mentor that you can connect with. So there's already a bit of a homework done before a mentee gets in touch. And you start again, as I said, being very open about the goals. And one of the key elements in this journey is also trying to understand what is it that the mentee is trying to achieve. Because at times what we say is not actually what we mean. I don't know if that if that resonates, but it tends to happen even in product management, right? Somebody comes and says, "I want this." And then you start digging deeper that why do you want this? What's the problem that you're trying to solve? And it turns out that what I wanted was something different from what I started with. And I feel this is again part of being empathetic, being genuine, listening, and then giving a very open and constructive feedback, right? Like it's an organic process. So when you're having a conversation, and I've seen it firsthand, right? Couple of conversations you have, and then you realize I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. Or a couple of conversations you have and you think, all right, so there is a misalignment, and then It could be something where you have an amicable conversation that I'm going to move on to this particular goal. But yeah, like I said, it moves organically.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of turning it around then, what do you expect from a mentee, in terms of sort of, accountability, how much sort of effort they sort of put into it. Yeah, anything around that sort of things.
So yeah, this is tricky. This isn't something that I expect out of mentees, but I expect that out of myself as well. Discipline and consistency. So discipline, to give a very simple definition, it's doing something hard or something easy when you're not motivated, right? When you lack the motivation and you just keep doing it. And consistency is continuously doing that at even a ungodly hour if it has to be. And I've seen that more often than not just with mentees, but even with myself. If you can maintain a certain discipline of just turning up, that in itself is a massive step in trying to achieve uh, the outcome that would actually help you solve the problem.
Got it. Yeah, just turning up, just doing it is that initial step, and from there it kind of goes from there. Amazing. So sort of moving on, so I guess some common roadblocks that you may have experienced yourself, and some sort of methods and how you've overcome these. So if you're able to share any personal experiences of challenges you faced, and sort of how you've overcome those.
Yes. So the most topical example is, I think a week ago, Intelligent People conducted a survey on LinkedIn where it said, do you have a product management mentor? And almost 63% response was no. If I were to just remove the whole product management and just say, do you have a mentor? I'm pretty sure that the response is going to be no. And the first roadblock, which we just slightly covered earlier, is people don't turn up, right? So a fascinating research done by Harvard said that 70% of Fortune 500 companies have a mentorship program. That sounds great. Everybody acknowledges, everybody understands that mentorship is key, but then they struggle to find hard evidence that says this was able to improve the EBITDA or the revenue by this much. And so they dug deeper. They conducted tons of experiments, and what came out was that people who are in need of mentorship are the ones who actually turn down or decline the opportunity. So I guess the solution here is either you're shy and you're not confident that whether I should be reaching out, which as we covered, just turn up. And the second is you probably possess some inflated sense that you do not need mentorship. And I think these are concepts that, in my view, should be made mandatory across organizations. It should not be optional. You have to go through the mentorship program, not just at organization level, but also we need to propagate sites like Intelligent People and others so that it's more visible across various areas, that people can then take mentorship as something which is a key element in the growth.
Absolutely. Thanks for your positive information on a mentorship scheme as well, Chetan. It's good. I haven't told it to say that, but yeah, it's great. Thank you. I guess it's that mentality of it's important, but not urgent, but it's kind of really raising the awareness of how important mentorship can be in your career progression. And I also think people sort of seek out mentorship within their own internal business rather than kind of looking outside and sort of getting an outside perspective on that. So in your experience, how can mentors overcome these challenges? You mentioned perhaps they're shy, or this, that and the other, don't have the confidence. What's your main piece of advice on how they can overcome these kind of roadblocks and get involved with mentorship?
Yeah, I think what I would say, just watch this piece on LinkedIn, because the more we talk about this, the more we make, the more we normalize this idea of mentorship, the easier it is for us to break the barriers. And I've had first-hand experience mentoring people. It's hard, right? It's hard even for the mentees. It's easy to say that have discipline and consistency, but part of your life is in your work environment, and majority of your life in your personal environment. Lots of stuff's going on, and I would say just bring this, and possibly the first step is turn up and give this a shot.
Absolutely. I mean, that summarises things perfectly, Chetan. Thank you, and thank you so much for your time today. I'd like to now hand back over to Doug, who will introduce our next speaker.
Thank you for that, Jen. So the next topic I have is with Talia King, who's the CPO and the Managing Director of Connectr. Talia is really well placed to talk about this because Connectr is a mentorship platform. So she has real life experience of how mentorship really helps organizations and really helps mentees as well. So we're probably going to get some key stats coming up onto the screen in a moment. I hope we are. And there's a couple that really resonate for me. I think the first is that 61% of professionals consider the availability of mentorship programs as a crucial factor when evaluating job opportunities. And why is that important to me? Why does that resonate with me? I'm in the talent attraction business, so I know if I have a client that offers mentorship, I can get a better response and a better level of engagement, and it means I can just get my client better candidates. So it just helps us do a better role for our clients, which is kind of why we're in business. Secondly, job postings that mention mentorship programs get 20% more applications than those without. So again, I think from a recruiter's point of view, if you're not bringing your clients the best candidates on the market, you don't really have a living. So clients who've got mentorship schemes really help us to help them because it's a real USP you can sell to candidates and kind of really get them on board with the opportunity, because good candidates tend to be in multiple opportunities. There's a couple of other bits that are on there as well. Retention is 20% higher for companies with mentorship schemes. 71% of Fortune 500 companies have implemented a mentorship program. I think Chetan touched on that. And there's also a LinkedIn Workplace report was saying 94% of employees would stay at a company longer if it was invested in their career development, including the mentorship program. So I think Talia should hopefully get brought in. Hey, Talia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm thirsty, so I'm going to have some water if you'd like to introduce everybody.
Hello, everybody. I am Talia, the MD of Connectr Talent Technology, and I have been within product/Connectr for 8 years now. At a very, I actually don't feel like people have a very classic route into product yet. Maybe things are changing, but I feel like mine was quite unique. And we started, so 8 years ago, I started at Connectr, and basically one of our client partners came to us and said, we've got this problem. We don't really feel like your current services solve this problem. And their problem was the dropout rate from job offer to day one. And me, freshly out of university, was slightly ballsy and was like, hypothesis that if you connect your new starters with current people in the organization, you're likely to decrease dropout rates, which did work. Amazing. And we had a really raw bit of product. And then over the years, we've gone through various rounds of funding, grown the team, invested in design and engineering. And we now have an amazing product / two versions of it. One that is kind of embedded during the candidate experience part through recruitment, and one that is more kind of within role and is a much kind of deeper mentoring relationship. But mentoring is key throughout. And our clients are kind of enterprise businesses. We work with GSK, Lloyd's, Cognizant, but obviously we ourselves are quite a small business. So I've got experience of advising kind of at scale mentoring, which is obviously where our product comes in, but also from my own experience of being a small business. And I have honestly had probably about 40 different mentors in different phases of my career, internally and externally. So I have a lot of experience in mentoring. Whether I know the answers, all of them I probably don't, but yeah.
Are these always sort of formal mentorship relationships or informal or both? Or?
So for me, I've had both really. I've had more kind of structured relationships that have lasted a couple of years where there's really set goals that we're working towards. There's a meeting once a month with pre-scheduled notes. Then there's more a kind of open-ended relationship. So we do a lot of research with mentors and mentees. And interestingly, a lot of people who say, I've got a mentor, you go and speak to their mentor and they're like, I don't feel like I'm their mentor. I just feel like I'm advising them a little bit with my own experience. And the word mentor has a connotation of like needing to be much better than the other person. And they don't necessarily think that. So sometimes I've just reached out to people and asked for a chat, and that's what I would define as they're probably being my mentor, but they're probably getting something out of the relationship too. Like Chetan said, both sides getting something out of the relationship. In the product part of that, so where we've got customers using our product during the kind of candidate experience part, the relationship, so the way the feature works in that is it's much lighter touch. So it's called a mentor, there's a bio of a mentor, but the reality is you can just message them. And we find that individuals message maybe 2 or 3 people, have a quick chat to really ask a few key questions about culture and life there, figure out if it's the right place for them. But it isn't this like year-long goal-setting mentoring relationship. That's really the product that's got goal setting, smart matching. But mentoring is, I think it's massively on a continuum, and a lot of people are probably mentoring but don't define themselves as a mentor.
Okay, cool. So with, I mean, we've got you're obviously a mentor yourself, you're a mentee, you work for a software platform that does mentorship. So we were looking at both attracting and retaining talent through mentorship. So I guess if we look at the sort of the candidate attraction side of it to start with, are there any sort of specific themes about, does it give your clients competitive advantage? Do you feel, is that measurable? Is that an employee trust thing?
I think that I mean, lots of our customers have incredible marketing teams that there are specific parts of that marketing team that are focused on employer brand.
Yeah.
There are many ways that you can get your employer brand out there. But mentoring is, I think, a really great way of authentically representing who you are as a business and what your culture is going to look like when you get in. Obviously, if you have a culture issue and that's something you're trying to fix, you are going to be tactical about who you put in those positions. So think about who's going to represent the culture that you really want to be creating in your organization. But there's some research that shows that candidates are 3 times more likely to trust what a current employee says versus the kind of HR person that they're chatting to, or even the hiring manager. And I mean, I myself can understand that because they're trying to pitch you a job. And if you are a particularly attractive candidate, it's actually more about them convincing you to join. So they're going to say the right things. Whereas if you chat to someone who, albeit they're still probably singing off a certain hymn sheet, they are going to give you more of an authentic view of whether that culture might be a good fit for you. So whenever we've hired into Connectr, a part of the kind of recruitment process is the person applying gets to meet the team, but without the hiring manager there. So there's obviously, you can use the product if you're hiring at scale. That's an amazing way of creating connection. Whereas in, like, for our own experience, we actually do use the product, but we've also got a part of our recruitment process that's like meeting the team, where it is more of an open chat to figure out if it's the right fit for them. The other thing, that I'm part of this CPO like WhatsApp group, and it's an interesting debate the other day about whether or not they like to be reached out to on LinkedIn when someone's going through a recruitment process and they're like, oh, hey, I'd love to chat to you about this job. Can you spare like 5 minutes? Most of them were not keen on it, which was interesting. Whereas obviously with the product, the candidates that are using it for Lloyd's, for example, get a chance to connect with someone at Lloyd's who's actively said, I want to support this. It's part of the kind of HR offer. Their managers are on board. It's been communicated. It could potentially be part of their PDPs. So from a candidate's point of view, they've really signed up to, they know that the mentor has signed up to do that support. Whereas with LinkedIn, you often get ignored or don't know if it's actually a rogue shout to be doing.
Yeah, I think that may have been Jason Knight's discussion, actually, because I commented
Yeah.
on it. And I guess it's the difference between, someone just sort of blindly reaching out, which actually just puts another stage in the process, as opposed to somebody who's sort of steps up to say, look, I'm happy to mentor. And I think, one of the things I really like about your platform and mentorship as well is it helps to level the diversity field as well. And I think, are you able to expand on that at all in terms of, I guess, from, we hear a lot about, we hear a lot and read a lot about, look, I was the only woman in the room or the only person of colour in the room, etc. How powerful is that, do you feel?
I mean, it's massively powerful. One of our clients increased their female hires by 40% when they embedded the product. Wow. And it is because, so the way that the product looks is there's kind of mentor bios. It's almost like a dating app, but with all of the mentor bios there. And it is like a representation of the diversity within your organization. So when we are chatting to clients about their kind of talent goals in terms of diversity, they think about the makeup that they're going to present in that mentor mix, because they might have only, 50 mentors, for example, to be used during this candidate experience part. But they're thinking about, even though we know we're struggling for hiring females within this certain field, they ask the women who are in those roles to kind of represent that. And it is more, so it was one of our construction companies that obviously does have, this is similar to the tech industry, also struggles to hire females in. And the feedback that we got from the candidates was that the other thing, that they felt like they would be able to fit in there because they could see themselves there. So they did over-index on females in the mentor mix. They also thought about the imagery that was on the platform to really show that this is a place that they could fit in. Albeit you do need to be transparent about kind of the goals of your business. So there was a bit of content there around the fact that they are trying to shift that dynamic as a sector, construction is trying to shift that dynamic.
Yeah, but you've got to, I guess from a mentor's point of view, you it's quite empowering. You're kind of being the change you want to see.
Yeah.
It's all well and good saying, okay, I want more of X in this sector. Well, okay, put yourself forward and foster and encourage that, right?
Yeah. The other thing is that when we've chatted to people to try and dig into why they chose to chat to someone, it's interesting that sometimes it is the things that you can see visually, they're a woman or they're from this sort of ethnic background, but it could also be things that are mentioned in the bio. So we do training when customers launch the product, and we encourage them to talk about if they've got ADHD, if they've kind of had any imposter syndrome in their career, and we got them to be quite authentic / honest about things that they've kind of overcome. And that when we chat to people, it's often those things that you can't necessarily see in a picture that they've picked out in their bio as to why they started connecting with them, which is
how do you sort of foster this mentorship culture then? Are there any key takeaways?
Yeah, so this is something we've learned over the years. It depends really how you're managing it, but I think celebrating the mentors who are giving back and the mentees in these relationships, but making it something that is publicly celebrated. So we often create like badges that people, post on their LinkedIn channels, but they also in their kind of monthly whole company meetings, they may do a shout out to a mentor. Sometimes it's actually involved in their PDP. So it's very much a manager has signed up for this and is, happy for them to dedicate time to it. But it is, if it's just like a pure L&D strategy and you've not got your senior leaders on board and it's not being talked about across the organization, it's likely it's going to die. And it's just going to be the select few that have heard about it. Whereas some of it is the upfront promotion. So we've got like marketing advice around how to kind of embed a mentoring culture. And then it's also the celebration, continuously thinking about new ways to kind of promote the mentoring offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the celebration's good because if you're, let's take imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's got imposter syndrome, the last thing they're going to want to do is stick themselves forward to be a mentor because they feel like an imposter. So I think that sort of normalization must really, really help get authentic people forward, which is kind of what you want. So moving on, what about retaining talent as well?
Yeah. So some of those things I've just said definitely play into both retaining and attracting. I guess the kind of access to mentoring, it was interesting what Chetan was saying, and often people don't know how to kind of find a mentor. Most organizations, if you're listening and you're part of like an enterprise type organizations, most organizations have a mentoring program. So I would get in touch with your HR or L&D team and ask what programs there are. Obviously, if you use our product, this is something that there's a link that is accessible to all within that organization, which creates equal access to everybody, albeit there might be like specific leadership programs being managed. But I do think some of it is the kind of equity of access to everyone is a key retention strategy, because it also, you mentioned about it being put in people's job specs. Mentoring is seen as kind of part L&D, part it's a benefit. So if you were running a mentoring program that's just for your leadership team, for example, and there isn't something for everybody else, that isn't really something that you're going to be able to shout about in your JDs. Whereas if you've got kind of maybe specific leadership programs, but also an open access mentoring, that's something you can put into your job spec.
Yeah.
The other thing that I feel mentoring does effectively is encourages people to think about. So obviously, if you feel like you've hit a wall and the only way is up is if your manager leaves, that is quite disheartening, and you're likely to look elsewhere for a job.
Yeah.
Whereas if there's mentoring that's encouraging you to think about a squiggly career, so something that's actually, it's a skill set that you're looking to hone in, but it's within a different part of the organization, by having access to mentors who've signed up, who are part of different teams, that could mean you as an organization gets to hold on to that talent rather than them jumping ship. Which, sorry, you go.
No, sorry.
I was just going to say, so yeah, it is key to retention because it highlights you don't always have to go up. It's highlighting there are different routes for you. If you're kind of feeling you need a change of sorts, it could highlight a different career route within that same organization. The other thing that we've had some success with is where you have a few different businesses within one mentoring experience. Sometimes they are in a very similar market and it almost feels competitive, but it has worked well in certain industries where as an industry they're looking to improve something, like tech could be looking to improve female representation, for example. But you were then setting up a mentoring connection without them having to go externally to learn that. They could be connected with someone like a VP of product for another business in a very similar kind of state to you. So that there are different ways that an organization can set up mentoring that retains the talent that you might not necessarily think you're that comfortable with, but it actually does work.
No, honestly, I think it's great. And I like the idea of a squiggly career because, we're of a slightly different generation, Talia. And, when I grew up, people talked about the career ladder, and it's about, promotion. How do you get promotions? You outperform your peers. They're kind of your rivals, etc. And it's this kind of, pyramid-shaped structure. And, through my career, I've seen there are certain jobs that's been the only one ahead of me, but I don't want to do that job. Like, I'm not suited to that job. I know kind of the things I'm good at, and the things
the lifestyle you want to live may not suit.
Yeah, the things I'm not good at. So yeah, I like the squiggly thing, and I like the idea of I guess similar businesses doing it, because if someone's going to lead, I don't think being mentored by someone in a similar business is going to make someone leave particularly. It shows confidence in the organization, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah.
So they're good points. What about things like then mentee choice? So, and when I say that, I mean a mentee having agency as opposed to HR with their managers kind of dictating it. Is that a bit of a key one, would you say?
Yeah, so it's interesting because often when customers on board with us, they currently have like a manual approach to mentoring, and their struggle is scale. But the scale comes because our product has like a matching algorithm in that recommends different individuals for them to connect with. And there is a lot of bias. So it's interesting when we chat to our customers about the 25 matches they've made and like what's made them think that they might be a good connection. But obviously, you as an individual, normally in HR, probably don't know those two people that well. You also have biases yourself. So you're making a call that might not actually be the right fit for them. The other thing is when a mentee is told this is your mentor and it doesn't necessarily work out, it's quite difficult to know how to kind of manage that, because you've been told by HR that's your mentor and it feels like a bit of the end of the road. Whereas with choice, which I guess is the same with how you're running your mentoring program, but in our product, there's a kind of a matching algorithm, matching for personality and the skill area. But ultimately, it's up to you to choose who you want to chat to. And we do find that people view like 5 bios before they actually start connecting. And they might even just have a first initial kind of chemistry fit call with 2 different people to then decide who they want to kind of go forward with. Or they could actually have 2 separate goals that 2 different individuals are going to work with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there is also research that has demonstrated mentee choice leads to more positive outcomes. And I think it is because there's a lot of bias in the kind of HR role, just deciding who should match with who.
Yeah, I mean, we let our platform. It's like yours. It's kind of self-selection. It's we look at it as a marketplace. But our experience is that the more detailed a mentor is, the better the matching is, and actually the more attractive they are. So when people do sort of skeleton profiles, guess what? They don't get much. Whereas if somebody puts in, okay, my experience is B2B SaaS, and I specifically want to mentor, I don't know, working class people, for example, and of this level who want to get here, and actually my recommended reads are this, and this. It makes them more of a beacon, like they just attract more interest. So cool.
Honestly, we did analysis of bios that had, I can help with anything. And honestly, that is so open-ended. It's very daunting. So no one messages them.
Yeah, I think if you're saying you can do everything, you probably can't do anything.
No.
Might take so. Well, I think it's probably time for us to zone out. Talia, thanks again. It's great to talk to you. Thanks for your insight on this. It's been really good of you to step up as well. Jen, unless there's another tech fail, then you're back in the room.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Doug, and thanks, Talia. And interesting couple of points mentioned there that I suspect we may cover in this section as well. Really, really interesting. So moving on, this particular section is around fostering leadership and using mentorship to help you accelerate in your career. And some really interesting stats, which should pop up shortly, there we are, include the following. So increased confidence and self-efficiency. LinkedIn reported that 75% of professionals who had a mentor reported feeling more confident in their ability to succeed in their careers. Now, this is particularly powerful for a couple of reasons, really. As we all know, imposter syndrome, which was mentioned, just now, can be a real challenge for some people. And we've actually done a recent poll on our LinkedIn page on this, and over 80% of people had reported they had experienced this before. So this is definitely a topical conversation in the market right now. The second one I'd like to highlight is from the Harvard Business Review regarding career growth and progression. They stated that mentees are 20% more likely to get promoted than those who do not have mentors. And so I'd be kind of really keen to get some further thoughts on this as to why this is. Is this because people apply themselves more, Or is it because they're getting more personalised career advice? Or maybe a mix of both? Certainly something to explore further. So our last discussion today is with the amazing Ruth. Hey there, Ruth, who is currently CPO at Lingoda. Thanks again for your time today, Ruth, or Lingoda, sorry. It'd be great if you can give an overview of your product career and the subject of product mentorship and why this particularly has resonated with you.
So, as you can easily see, my last name is very, very German. So that's a giveaway. You can also see that if you see me somewhere on social media, you will see Ruth Rectangle. That's because I live in an English community. I live in England. So that kind of gives you an idea of how I spend my time. I have worked in startups, scale-ups, and quite a few screw-ups, which gives you an idea of the experience level. To tell you a bit more about which areas, so I worked in telecommunication, I worked in video on demand, I worked in home improvement, I worked in health tech, and now in education. So I also have quite a variety of industries that I have a clear view about. Currently, I'm working at Lingoda. The name should give away, it has something to do with languages. So we're building bridges by language learning. And because all of you are product related people, I'm going to give you a little bit about the product vision, which should also help you understand what we're doing. So this is a very seamless integration between an online class and the practice around this. This is unique because it's all around human teaching. We put the teachers first, but we give you the right tools to then have meaningful progress. That's in lots of things where we currently learn in the world, meaningful progress is so hard to realize. Why mentoring? So you've seen or you've heard I've been living all over the place. I've been in different industries. I have spent quite a bit of time of thinking about people, process, and product. I have spent quite a bit of time of thinking how you create the best product teams. For me, they're fun, efficient, and effective. And that has also led me into understanding that I do have a bit of knowledge, and it's always good to share because care, share, and bear are some of my values. There you go.
Amazing. Loving the rhyming there. Very catchy. So whilst this roundtable is focused on mentorship, I'd be kind of keen to get your thoughts on what are the factors, in your opinion, help to accelerate a product career and develop the kind of key leadership skills for people to jump up the ranks?
So what I've noticed, especially because I'm very much in a startup scale-up world, is a clear definition actually of what we expect from a product manager. So we're using a competency model within our competency model, and this is a competency model you might have seen on other programs. We have 4 corner pieces. This is about product execution, so how to discover, deliver, and how you do QA. There is a cornerstone of user insights, which is very much about data fluency, the voice of the customer, and then it's also about the user experience design. The third cornerstone for me is for us, this product strategy, which is very much that I see a product manager as an outcome facilitator, creating vision, strategy, and roadmap. And then the last cornerstone is especially important, is influencing people. That's what we do as product people. We influence people. We influence stakeholders. We're managing up, we're managing sideways. We do all these. So while this is it's almost, and we have it in an Excel sheet, I must say, these are kind of the quadrants we work with. Within your product career, I would expect you, even as a junior product manager, to do already all these things, just with more support. Mm-hmm. This is important because then over time, you're very clear on what you need to learn in order to go further within your career. So crucial for me then is to set up a very, very clear understanding of what does the structure look like? Where do I start? What is expected of me? And yeah, that's where I think the cruciality starts.
Got it. I love that structure, and you know, from sort of day one, having that is really valuable. Really knowing, you know, what it is you kind of need to do to kind of accelerate your product career. Would you, out of those 4 that you've mentioned there, Ruth, would you say one more important than the other, or all equally as important, or?
I think that really depends on the company. That really depends on the stage you're in. This structure will not really maybe work for a very, very starty up greenfield, because you just go with the flow, right? I think for me, I'm leaning towards user insights, because that's how I solve problems. The rest of the pieces are, I think user insights is the one. The data fluency, to really understand your customer and the user experience. I think that is one that is also very, very wide and very important to me.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And sort of from your side and your experience, how would you structure a mentorship scheme, specifically looking to develop and work on the above skills you've mentioned for product leaders?
So first of all, it's actually for yourself to realize what is important, what to work on. And as a mentor, what I try to do is I try to be an example, right? So I'm very humble about what I know, because I also know that most of the things I don't know. I had a person working with me lately. The person was of the opinion that because I'm a CPO, I know it all. It couldn't be further from the truth, because we just have better tools. That doesn't mean that we know it all. I, as my leadership style, as you can read, I call myself more raptive, which means on the one hand, I want to be very motivational, but on the other hand, also very disruptive. I am trying to make sure that whoever works with me has the ability or is empowered to learn as much as somehow possible. So bringing this back to the structure, I think what we're starting with is the matrix you've seen earlier, to then figure out what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what do we need in order to make this all happen. If you look within this structure also at the opportunities that we can sprinkle in there, well, mentorship programs, I think the two in front of me have discussed this quite broadly. There's a piece of structuring and supporting with a cross-functional work. I think if I lean this way, you can see my better together sign. This also means that we're bringing in different disciplines. Within my team, we have disciplines around analytics, UX design, UX research, and so on. So also bring this in. In the good old days, it was shadowing, but because we're all remote right now, that's really, really hard. It used to be much easier when you were all in the same room. There's a bit of networking. And I think the other point around structuring also, when you think about what structure you need in order to facilitate, is a concept that one of my colleagues brought in. That's the board of directors. So as in creating for yourself a board of directors. So within our company, I'm trying to be helpful with everything that is around product. But there's other disciplines that you might need really benefit from figuring out more. So if you think about more business or more strategy or more people management, so to create for yourself that board of directors, I have seen in the past being quite successful.
Interesting. Yeah, I love those tips on the sort of internal opportunities for product people to develop their leadership abilities. Thanks for sharing those. And just moving forward, to get your thoughts on how can actually people implement this and create those pathways for themselves. These are all brilliant ideas, but how can someone put this into practice? How can they take this forward in their own personal career?
So I'm going to share the structure I have, and maybe that's helpful for other people who do hiring, and then take it from there. And then we can also go into, if you don't have that structure, if you're not put into that structure, we'll take that as a second. So first of all, let's start with a role model canvas. So before hiring, we do this on a mirror board currently. So we're very clear on what everybody expects of that role to be. As many product managers copy things. This is from a very good book. I can share that later. So we're just involved in that. So once you have that product, that role model canvas, we then are very clear about how we interview. We changed the interview process for us very clearly because we wanted to make sure that we give a really good insight in the company, how we work, and what we expect. I'm doing this by having a little video. So I'm creating a video, 10 minutes, talking about the company, which also gives everybody the same opportunity to get the same information. And I don't have to repeat it 10 times. So with this clear model canvas of what we're expecting of the role, we've done an interview process where we are very clear about what we expect as a company, what we expect as a product department. We're kind of trying to set the scene for very clear clarity before we even start. When you then successfully have gone through the interview, we hired you, then we have a very structured onboarding. Once again, that onboarding is also very much to enable you to know where your strengths are, your weaknesses, because within this onboarding that goes two ways. I'm telling you, taking you through what we as a Lingoda company expect, and you will tell us what you expect. And that brings us together with the milestones of 30 days, 90 days, and then 6 months. So this should all set you up to kind of figure out within that time, how do we work? How do you work? And what are the potential areas that we can improve on? This is then where the competency model, where the competency model then comes into play. So we have this model where we then first have asked the product manager or anybody within the department to rate themselves. Where do they see themselves? We then have me or the line manager looking at this and saying, okay, this is where we see you. Our product managers are very open with this. Also the other team members, as in we show each other where we see ourselves, so we can also see where our opportunities. Once that's done, we build, I call them OKRIs, so objective key results and initiatives. You quite often see them on a company level. I use them on a personal level. And this is not as a trickling down from the company ones, but it's from a personal perspective. So me as an individual, what objective do I have? How do I measure it? And what initiatives do I drive in order to do so? Let's, for example, say you're not really good at, or you could improve on data fluency by setting yourself this objective, the key results and initiatives. That gives you an opportunity to also have milestones and have very clear ways of learning. We heard earlier that learning is hard. I think it's especially hard if you are not setting yourself a clear plan. The one trick I'm using within Lingoda is group initiatives. So if you have similar people with similar initiatives, so for example, one could be an inspirational leader and speak at certain events, then we bring these people together because we're also busy right now. It's really hard to find learning groups, so to say. So that's what we're trying to do. We're bringing people together. And then there's one more within this. So if you don't have all this, which is quite often the case, because quite often people are stepping up in leadership positions, haven't quite learned yet how to do people management. It's a structure that you can also set up for yourself. So what is this? And then ask your manager for feedback. One of the things that is important to me is that one-to-one feedback. So we have weekly one-to-ones. Within those, there's always room for improvement. Or for giving feedback to make sure that if anything hasn't gone right or if everything has gone right, that's clearly articulated, because I strongly believe in radical candor. So if you don't tell each other, we won't know. So summarize, get a structure for yourself, challenge your manager if the structure isn't there. So it's very clear for you what are the areas that you need help with. Because mentoring is easier if you both agree on what the areas are that need improvement. How's that for a short summary?
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for going into the detail there. For me, the setting those expectations at the start is really, really important. And that they're sort of rating yourself versus your line manager, that's all kind of really, really good stuff and really valuable. And then sort of tying that into your sort of weekly one-to-ones, and sort of so there's always sort of a takeaway is obviously super important. And so, have you got any ideas around any other sort of business initiatives to sort of increase those growth opportunities? Anything that you've done or you've seen?
Yes, so apart from also not doing this within a company, but going outside, I think what I've had really good response on was because there's so many cross-functional areas. So for example, if you as a product manager need more data fluency, I we started to align the working with the product analyst, for example. So how do you create this really immediate, and I wrote this actually down to make sure, it's great if you just learned something. It's much, much better if you really, really are also able to immediately use it. So I'm trying to create these opportunity of within the different projects we're running, within the different things we're doing, to really help you or facilitate that you will apply this right away, because otherwise you've learned something and you don't know how helpful it is. I think in general also to give clear principles of how to mentor, how to help guide people from being a junior to a mid to a senior, and then helping them to help others is something that has worked well for us, because there is this multiplying effect. It's also very, very empowering as a product manager once you realize that you can actually teach others. So I've seen this working really well.
Learn, use, apply. Love that. Yeah, really, really good stuff. And yeah, it's all about empowering others and kind of getting the confidence from that and sort of pushing forward. So that's amazing. And these sort of these things that you've mentioned here, Ruth, are these part of sort of the promotion criteria that you use, or in performance reviews? Are you able to touch on that just to sort of summarize?
So I think one of the things that we really learned is that the competency also model helps you. So we're reviewing once a month. I with my team also review once a year. Sorry, once a month would be crazy. Half yearly, also because then you can reset your individual OCRIs. Because sometimes it takes half a year to learn something, sometimes it takes a year. So yes, so we do half yearly reviews and then readjustment of the objectives when and as needed.
Brilliant. Well, absolutely loved this conversation today, Ruth. Thanks so much for your time. And I'll hand back over to Doug now to summarise the roundtable today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Ruth. And thanks everybody for turning up today. I hope you found it interesting. I guess the summary, the three to four real takeaways I had is that from Chetan's talk, mentoring is a two-way process. If both parties learn, mentors learn from their mentees, mentees learn from the mentors. And this is something Ruth touched on as well. She was saying mentees develop skills. So these are hard skills people get, and we work in placing people. Skills gets you jobs, it gets you promotions. So I would heartily recommend any candidate to get mentored, whether it's on our platform or somewhere else. And Talia's real takeaway, the thing I really, really liked is celebrate mentoring, celebrate it within your organisation, and understand that a mentorship, it isn't always formal. It can be chats with your friends or people with different sector experience, but it's a really, really good thing to do. So they can be formal or informal. And I'd like to thank the three speakers today, Chetan, Talia, Ruth. It was great. If anybody is looking for a mentor, please do either reach out to me or Jen, or just go to our website and look at the mentorship scheme. There's some great mentors available there. If anybody's looking for a new role, please go to intelligentpeople.co.uk. We've got some amazing roles on there. I think Jen's got a product director role as well. So there's some great stuff there. And thanks to Jen as well. Jen, you've been amazing today as always. I guess that's it. Thank you.